Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. We're live this evening. This is February 26th. Can you believe that in a few short days it will be March 1st, because this happens to be leap year. So we will have 29 days in this month. So, anybody who's going to be born better hurry up and do it, because if they're born on the 29th, they have to wait every 4 years to have a birthday. This is a little strange, but what can I do? I didn't make the calendar. Anyway, we had snow again, and it's chilly, and I hope spring comes very soon. I think we've had enough winter, and I hope that everybody is connected with their next door neighbors or those around the block or upstairs of you in your condo or wherever you're at, just to say hello, knock on the door, do a wellness check, whatever, and ask them for a cup of coffee so you could see everything's okay. And I hope that they reciprocate, if that be the case, that they would check on you if you were not feeling well or whatever. Anyway, we have a very special guest this evening that we've never had on the program before. This is Howard Cooper. And Howard Cooper is the Lake County coroner here in Lake County. And he's going to tell us, his job, and if people want to go visit. I don't know if you want to visit, but if you want to, take a look around or whatever. This is not Halloween, but if that's what you want to do, take a little tour. And he's an interesting gentleman. I think you'll find the evening as enthralling and as exciting as we're going to make it. It's going to be informational, educational, knowledgeable, whatever you want to make out of it. But without any hesitation, let me introduce to you, and my hands are cold, so Howard Cooper. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well. Thanks, Beth.
Good. Okay, so I hope that was a good enough build-up.
That was perfect. Just perfect.
Okay, so, I think you need to let the people know you are Lake County coroner.
I am.
And that your time isn't even your time. I mean, you don't have 9 to 5 and then you're off.
Correct.
You have to be called or whenever there's an incident. Yeah. So how does that work, and how does that affect your home life? What do you do? I mean, in a case like that.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's definitely a 24/7 job. I mean, there's no question about it. Basically, what happens is when there's a death, we're in charge of all the deaths in the county. And when there's a death, they call in to, if it's after hours, one of my deputies is on call. And then when they get that call, they call me and let me know where it is. And then generally, probably about 90% of the calls I'm out on. So there are nights that I'm out all night. I could be out all night, days in a row. It just sort of depends. But I like to get out because I get to meet with the families and I get to see what happened. And ultimately, I have to rule on those cases. So it's really good for me to be there.
So you get all types of cases.
Oh, sure. I mean, we have all types of, everything from, homicides, accidents, it could be car crashes, it could be overdoses, it could just be naturals, it could be people that die that, you talked a little bit earlier about wellness checks.
Yeah. That's
a really important thing because we have people that, especially the elderly this time of year where they're not outside all the time, so people sort of forget about them. And then, they end up dying and they don't.
Nobody knows.
And nobody knows, and they don't get found maybe for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And, and it's sad. It really is sad, So we certainly advocate for people to be doing wellness checks on their friends, their neighbors, and, look at their mail, see if things are piling up. I mean, you want to check on those folks.
How did you get into this kind of a situation? If somebody is a truck driver or whatever, they say, my dad's company, and
sure.
I just, I got behind the wheel. I said, wow, I like to drive a truck. Bango, you're in the family and you're in the business. So,
right.
But how did you come to this situation?
You know, interestingly enough, when I was growing up, fell in love with a TV show called Quincy, which I'm sure you remember.
Oh, yeah.
I went to dental school, so I'm a dentist. I've been practicing for 29 years. And when I was in dental school, I heard about a forensics class, and because I loved Quincy, I said I got to take this forensics class. And as a dentist, we identify folks via their teeth. So I got really interested and into forensics in dental school. I took all the classes I could on forensic dentistry or forensic odontology. And then when I got out of school, I went to the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology and took their mass disaster class. And then after that, I heard about a government team called DMORT, which is the Disaster Mortuary Operational Response Team. And I got onto that team, and ultimately what happens is when there's a disaster, a plane crash, natural disaster, something would happen, we would get activated, and then we would go to that scene and then, you know, perform dental identification. And when 9/11 happened, I got called that morning to see if I could go to New York. And the following day, the airports obviously were closed.
Sure.
And the Air Force actually came and picked us up, and I flew to New York out of O'Hare. We were the only plane to take off from O'Hare. And I went to New York, and I spent the rest of that month doing dental identification and working at Ground Zero in the office of the chief medical examiner. So that really got me into forensic dentistry big time. After that, I got onto a weapons of mass destruction team. And with that team, we would do body recovery and decontamination. So we'd wear the white suits with the breathing apparatus.
Hazmat.
It's all hazmat, exactly. And when Hurricane Katrina happened, we got activated, and I went down to New Orleans for 5 weeks and did body recovery and decontamination.
Now, are the remains brought back to an office, or you just don't do it on the spot? How do you?
So basically what would happen is we would do the recovery, and then the remains would be brought back to, depending, like in New York, it was the office of the chief medical examiner. In New Orleans, it was a makeshift morgue. So it was a morgue that was, built inside a warehouse, in essence. And then the remains would be brought back, and then we would decontaminate them, and then they would go to different departments. So like in New York, they would first go through a triage area where, you have to make sure, are they human, are they animal, are there teeth, and then, if it's a body, what are all the things that are with it? Are there, necklaces or rings or things like that? Whereas
any identification, how you do that?
Correct. Anything that you find has to be documented and everything, and then it would go through to the FBI for fingerprinting and DNA, and it would go through full body medical, X-rays, things like that, and then ultimately it would go to the dental section. And then in the dental section, we would take radiographs, do a full exam, and then ultimately we would compare that to missing person reports, which, at some point what happens is people would report their loved one missing. We would find out who their dentist is based on this 7-page form that they filled out, and then we would call the dentist and request radiographs and charts. And then we would compare, and then ultimately you hope that you get a match.
What do you do if you have, if the decedent is not all together? How do you match what parts go with what?
Yeah, so it just depends on what you find. Ultimately, like in New York, everything, DNA was ultimately done on all the parts because it was an explosion, so you had different parts. Whereas Katrina, they were more full bodies. So it was very different from those two events. But ultimately, DNA would be the only way to put everybody sort of back together. But we identified people with 1 and 2 teeth, in both places. So it's, it can definitely happen. That's the beauty of dental, is that you can really identify people, and you don't need a lot of information.
It's like fingerprints. No two are alike.
Right.
No two are alike.
Right.
So identification, definite identification.
Oh yeah, no, we know. It's very, it is who it is, or it isn't. So it's one way or the other.
So was is there anybody else in the family that does what you do?
No,
No?
no, I'm sort of an original.
Oh, well, that's
So, but I worked with coroners and medical examiners across the country. I used to do their dental, so if they had a victim, they would actually send me the jaws so I could get x-rays and do what I needed to do, and then I would let them know who it was or if it was the person they thought it was. And with that, I really gotten more involved with the coroner system, and so that's why when there was the opportunity, I just felt that it would be really good for me to run. The other part of that is that I have 5 kids. My kids, I went to Deerfield High School. My kids went to Deerfield High School, and some are still there. And, I tried talking to the school about, problems that I was seeing in dentistry with drugs and things like that, and nobody would really talk to me. You're just nobody,
So,
but as coroner, it allows me to get into schools. It allows me to talk to kids on many different levels, whether it be drugs and alcohol or making good choices and things that we see. So it really is a great avenue for that. So ultimately, that's really why I ran, because I want to be able to educate. I wanted to be able to.
well, don't you think that the school itself would like to protect their students, their pupils, and
Yes.
and now Illinois makes marijuana legal. So
Yeah.
these kids either drink illegally and get high on the drugs, and they go speeding down the road, and they don't know who they're taking out or what they're doing. This is even worse, Howard. This is like a mass suicide,
Yeah,
and
well,
they're letting them do it.
I mean, we hope that, obviously it's still illegal, even though it's legal for a certain age group. It's not legal for the kids in high school. So, we hope that they're not going to be doing it, but ultimately, can they be, and are they?
See?
Of course, we know that. But schools, it's touchy because schools don't want to admit that there's a problem. I mean, a lot of schools won't admit that there's heroin issues in our school
Oh,
system,
wow.
but I can absolutely say
Tell
there
you
are
that-
heroin problems. I mean, we have overdoses, all the time in our county, unfortunately. And the overdoses that we have in our county are not from a specific area. We have overdoses from all over our county.
Wow.
So it's, a lot of people think, oh, it's just in Waukegan or it's
No.
just in North Chicago. No. I mean, we just had an overdose in Highland Park not that long ago, a couple weeks ago. So, they're everywhere. And, my biggest thing is that I want to get out as much as I can and educate the public that this is a problem that we're seeing everywhere. It's all over.
Do you think that, we're not over talking it, but do you think that because we talk about it, other people, other stations, other whatever, they talk about it, do you think that this gets the point across, or it's just they shut it off, they don't want to hear it anymore, and they just do whatever they want to do?
Well, I think kids in general, there's a lot of things that are bad for kids.
Kids, sure.
And they know this. Let's not even talk drugs. Let's just talk about smoking or vaping.
Yeah.
We all know that that's bad, yet we all know that there's tons of vaping
doing
and
it,
smoking
yeah.
going on in our schools.
Sure.
So, I think, kids are kids, and their brains are not fully developed, and they're not going to make the same choices that, they make as an adult. But the more we talk to them and the more we explain it to them, and I think that my perspective on it's very different. It's one thing when you talk to when teachers tell you or adults tell you, you're like, yeah.
I know.
But
Yeah.
when I can show them, here's kids that have died, it's sometimes maybe a
Wow,
little bit different.
it's a shocker.
Because the people that I'm seeing, they're dead.
They don't talk
You know,
anymore.
No, and I've seen my patients. Unfortunately, I've had some of my patients on my, that I've watched grow up on my autopsy tables. I have one girl that I can think of right off the top of my head, a 25-year-old girl, great girl, nice girl, and it's just a shame that I'm the one that has to go tell her parents that,
It's a drug overdose?
it was.
Oh.
It was. And she's not my only patient that's happened to.
See.
And we see it, we see a fair amount of overdoses. In our county we'll have over the last couple years, we've had, in 2018, we had 96 overdoses. This year, 2019, we're going to come in probably the same. We just have a couple more cases to close.
Wow.
And that's still, that's a fair amount of overdoses. It's
It
a lot
is.
more than I'd like, believe me.
Well, the parents, we're talking about the victims, but the parents are victims as well.
Oh, sure. And that's the hardest thing, whether it's an overdose, whether it's a suicide, it's the people that are left behind that really have the hard time. And that's what a lot of people, too, don't really understand about my job, because, they just think, oh, you just work with the dead people, you see dead people, that's all you do. And that's not all I do. Obviously I'm there to see it. The scene is our scene. We, take our photos and look and examine and investigate and figure out why and how they died. Certainly that's a big role of what I do. But most of what I do is helping the families. I'm the one that's there at 3 o'clock in the morning,
You're
knocking
the one
on
that's
their
gotta
door
talk to
to tell them the worst news. I'm the one that's going to, in essence, ruin their life. And not that I did anything, obviously, but they're never going to forget that day that I knocked on their door, or the day that I rang their
You're
bell.
the one that gives the news,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's usually not good news,
Well,
because when they see you,
it's never good news if
they
I'm at somebody's
know
house.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But I like to think that we do it, very compassionately, that we help the families get through it. I have a lot of families that, even afterwards, or even at a scene, I'll be at a hospital and I'll tell them everything that I need to tell them, and then I'll go to say goodbye, and I go to shake their hand, and they're like, I'm not going to shake your
They
hand,
don't
and
wanna-
they give me a hug. So,
Yeah.
I know that I did everything the right way.
Yeah.
And then I have families that call me and they're like, I know that, I was terribly rude to you, or, when you came, I just was so unprepared and I'm so sorry. And my gosh, that's the last thing I have to do is apologize to me.
In that time of, situation, who would, take any offense?
Yeah. Oh, no, and I never
to
would.
anything like that.
No.
Everyone is, it's a shock. Even when someone is ill and they're perhaps terminal, when the finale comes and that happens, it's still a shock.
Yeah.
Because the living don't know how to cope with
Right.
the loss.
And it's hard.
It's
there's
incredible.
No doubt it's hard.
It's incredible.
But when it's something that's completely unexpected, it's really bad for these families. It's a big shock. So, we're there, and we've got programs and people they could talk to, and, I've got other families that have been through similar circumstances, so sometimes we can network them, and, there's a lot that we can do, and it's, like I said, I think we do a great job, and I think our families are really appreciative of everything that we do.
You mentioned tours now, and these kids that overdose or commit suicide. If you have a tour of high schoolers, juniors, seniors, I don't suppose you have anything younger than that.
Oh, sometimes we do, sure.
Is that doable for kids, young kids to?
Yeah, we don't see generally like elementary school age, but, especially like with Boy Scouts or Cub Scout troops,
yeah.
We'll have them come through. And Cub Scout troops, obviously they are younger.
Yeah.
And what I say is tailored to the group that comes
Yeah.
through. I'm not going to show pictures necessarily that I might show adults. Different things that we do. I'm not going to show those to kids.
No, if it was a car crash, you could show the picture of the car.
Sure, absolutely.
And say, when you're driving and when you'll get to that age to drive,
Yeah.
you have to be very careful. I just saw on cable this morning of a train hitting a semi-trailer tractor. It just ripped right through it.
Oh, yeah.
One half was on one side of the tracks, and the other half was on the other side of the tracks. But the train just kept going.
Trains are always going to keep going.
You don't play around with something that's bigger than you are, And again, there was some news on the TV about a very dangerous crossing. They don't know where the tracks go and who's got the right of way. And again, most treacherous crossing. It's terrible. But when those things happen, they said, well, the car got caught between the the signals and couldn't get out and whatever. But you would imagine they would have the brain thought, get out of the car.
Yeah.
Get out. The car can be replaced, but your humanity cannot be replaced.
Right. But, you know, people get into a situation where they panic. And sometimes they don't, you know, they don't make the choices that we would think that they would make.
And those trains, they come and they don't slow down. They may.
No, I mean, we have some trains that go through our county at 70 miles an hour.
And they blow their horn, but, you know, you can't get the car off the track. Get out of the car.
Right.
Get out of the car. Leave the car, get out of the car.
Yeah.
So that, you know, I could see how all this would tie in, but the opioids and everything that's going on, and the vaping and the, you know, is it a thrill? Is it just because it's a thrill? I have to tell you, Howard, you said you have 5, I have 7. My kids didn't do that. Not that I know of.
Sure.
Not that I know of. But, you know, we always say, you know, watch yourself, be careful, don't do anything that would cause you harm or
yeah, but I always say to my kids, make good choices.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's really the most important advice. And I tell that to all the kids that come through or the schools that I go to. Those are the 3 most important words, are make good choices. Because that's something you're gonna do the whole rest of your life. I mean, that's what we do every single day.
How do they know what is a good choice for them?
Well, I mean, that's up to them ultimately. I mean, everybody has a brain, and, you know, you hope that they use it. And I think inherently kids still know right from wrong, but, you know, sometimes those lines get blurred with peer pressure and with bullying and things that happen. And,
yeah, big
you know, I mean, those are things that we've got to take very seriously. And, you know, again, even when kids come through, I mean, I offer them, you know, if they need help, if they need to talk to somebody, if there's somebody doing something that they're not sure of, you know, we offer them resources. And there's some great programs even in Lake County. There's Text to Tip, which is a program that's totally anonymous, where kids can do it on their phone. They can text somebody that can help them, and it's, you know, they can't get in trouble. Nobody knows it's them, and they'll be talking to a counselor. So I mean, there's some really a professional, which is really good. So there's a lot of good resources and programs, but the kids still ultimately have to be able to do it and want to participate in those things.
Make that choice.
But I think if they know about it, and especially with something like that where it's anonymous and they can reach out to somebody, I think, you know, and they get a lot of tips, a lot of texts. So, you know, I think it's a really good thing.
You know, your office comes into play with many different areas of the living, not only the deceased, but the living, because you deal with, you know, the families, you deal with kids that maybe are troubled, or one that in a family that committed suicide or whatever. How do you handle that to be able to connect with what you need to do? I mean,
well, I mean, I think, you know, I think to cope, I think the people that are involved in this type, you know, coroners, medical examiners, those types of people are probably different than most other people. You know, I mean, we can help and do everything we need to do, but ultimately we take that and put it in a section and sort of close it off. Because, you know, if you didn't sort of compartmentalize your feelings, you wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, everything I see every single day is sad. You know, everything that I deal with every single day is death. So it's different than, you know, a firefighter or a police officer. And while they see death at certain times, it's not every day. For me, it's every day. I mean, that's all I do. I'm either talking with families or out at scenes or doing, you know, helping with autopsies or watching or talking with doctors or, you know, I mean, there's just always something that we're doing, and it all revolves around death. So it's a different kind of job. Ultimately, I think we do a great job. I think we do a great job for our families. You know, this year was, or last year, 2019, we became accredited by the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners. We're only the second office in Illinois out of 102 counties, the second office to be accredited. So it's a really, I think, a big feather, and it shows that we really do have the compassion and to help, you know, the people of our county. I mean, it's a really big deal, and I think we do a good job. So, you know,
Well, you'd have to be doing a good job to be able to be accredited like that. I mean,
So,
they check
yeah.
everything, they do everything,
Oh,
they
it was
watch,
a lot. It was
they
a lot of work.
write down. Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
but it's good, and I think that it makes us better, and it makes us a stronger office, and it makes us, again, um, better for our folks, and when they need something, they know we're there.
But do any of your kids feel that this is something they might want to, get involved with or not?
I mean, two of my kids are in the medical profession.
Okay.
Then I have one that's a photographer, so that's my second passion. So she picked up on that, and then my two younger ones are in high school, and one is going to college next year. She does want to go into the medical profession, so we'll see what she ends up doing. But that's where she's at now. And my little guy, I don't know what he wants to do yet, but I mean, and he's been at scenes with me, and all my kids know what I've done. I mean, I've been doing forensics their whole lives, so they've always seen my pictures and been at lectures, and I've spoken all over the United States, and so they're very familiar with it. But I mean, I know my older kids were, as much as they've seen, it's just not what they want to do. That's just not their thing. I mean, it's not for everybody. I mean,
No.
most people probably think I'm a little weird.
No,
But,
it's it's a job. Everybody has a job to do, and when you get the right person for the right job, then it goes well.
Yeah.
If you put somebody in that position that doesn't know what they're doing, but they have the power and the position, that could be very dangerous.
Well, of course.
But when you've got somebody in the position, knows what they're doing, can make the office move quickly and swiftly, and make it, hitting all the bars, everything you need, then that's excellent. Because even in a business, and Lake County Coroner is a business, but you just don't call up on the phone and want to order a pizza or something, But you have to know what you're doing and be happy at the job you're doing.
Oh, sure.
Not saying, oh, gee, time to go home, or I'm too tired today, or whatever.
Yeah,
You have to
no, I mean,
really throw your entire thought pattern into doing what you need to do, because
Well, all my deputies, my chief, myself, we have a toxicologist. We're actually the only coroner's office in Illinois with a tox lab. My admin folks, my autopsy tech. I mean, even our interns. I mean, everybody just, I mean, they care about what we do. Everybody's passionate about what we do, and you have to be. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do the job if you weren't. It's like I said, it's a very different kind of job, and
to say the least.
And you're helping people at the worst time in their lives. So if you didn't have a passion for this, and if you couldn't help them and do these things to get these families through
hard, very hard.
Then we'd be failing the families. So but we're lucky. I mean, I really have a great crew, and everybody is they're involved and they care, and they just want to be better. I mean, our investigators, they take classes every year. We just got back from the American Academy of Forensic Science meeting, which is an annual meeting that we go to. It's the biggest forensic meeting in the country. It's we do everything we can to make ourselves better for the folks that we help.
Do you do cold cases? Are you involved with any of that?
Sure. I mean, if we're called, I mean, there might be a department which would call about a cold case. We have some old cases that we relook at periodically, but for the most part, we're lucky. I mean, in Lake County, there's really nothing that's too out of control since I've been coroner that we haven't been able to figure out. So everything's been good. The biggest case that we had, at one time was the explosion in Waukegan.
Yeah,
which,
that was enormous.
Certainly everybody felt that explosion, and that, 2:30 in the morning when the fire went out, the fire chief looked at me and said, "Okay, here you go." And we took over that scene, and for 6 days we went through that factory piece by piece. But we knew there were 3 folks in there. And
you found them.
And we found them all, and we worked with those families from the moment that we got there. And I still keep in touch with with some people from there, and I mean, we did everything we needed to do, and we, again, it's all about helping the families. I mean, for the most part, most of our victims, yes, we want to find them and we want to figure out what happened, um, but ultimately, it's the families that we help. Now, sometimes, obviously we're the voice for the victims too. In other cases, in homicides and things like that, we're their only voice at that point.
That's
So
right.
we've got to make sure that when we do our investigation, that we're going to find all the answers to find out what happened
what
to them,
happened, yeah.
who killed them, and we've had some really, really serious, homicides in our county since I took over the office, and um, and we've done some great investigative work. Us, the police. Um, you know, I can't go into details because some of
No.
these are going to be in
Sure.
court, but it's the departments in this county. I mean, people they just don't understand how hard our police officers work, how hard our firefighters work. I mean, sometimes when I need the firefighters to cut somebody out of a car for us, and I mean, everybody works so hard and does such a great job, and I just can't say enough about the different groups that we come in contact with. And like I said, police and fire, our ambulance services. I mean, it's amazing to see how great everybody
Well,
works together.
it's a hand in hand. Each
Oh,
one
you have
proves to
to.
the other.
You have to. I mean, we couldn't get our investigations done if we weren't working together. I mean, it's nice. I could pick up the phone. I can call a chief. I can call, an investigator.
Yeah.
I can call a detective. I mean, and everybody, everybody answers. Everybody
Works.
helps. Everybody cares, and it's great. No matter who it is, it's nice that those are the relationships we have in our county.
As comparing, I mean, Illinois, Lake County, to anywhere else, what about New York? What about California? I mean, those are big cities.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally different than what we are. Even Cook County is totally different than Lake. I mean, we're the third largest county in Illinois. So, do we have a lot of cases
Yeah.
for a county? Yes, of course we do. We have over 5,000 deaths a year in our county. But do we compare to Cook or to New York, or LA? No. I mean, those are huge cities and they have way more than we do. But they also have a much bigger staff and, I mean, much more resources, and it's totally different. But for what we do for a county, I mean, we're busy. There's no question about it. And for the amount of deputies that I have, they're amazing. I mean, the amount of work that they put in it's really amazing that they can get everything they can done. I mean, we really need, a bigger staff, but, it's tough on a county level to get more
Sure,
folks.
sure.
But everybody comes to work every day and they're all smiling and they work as hard as they can, and it doesn't matter how many cases come in that day.
Get the job done.
Everybody works, yeah.
Get the job done.
So.
Is there anything that can be done to lower the number of deaths? Is it by what means?
Well, ultimately, I mean, education is huge. I mean, that's why we really try to talk to our young folks and explain to them, what it is to make good choices, and, we talk to them about our opioid problem and things like that. We certainly talk to them about suicide. I mean, if our suicide numbers go down and our, overdose deaths go down, that would be fantastic. I mean, of course I would like that. I mean, just, going in and talking to kids in a high school, and even if it's just one life that I've saved, it's well worth my time. I mean, and can we prove those things? No. I mean, there's no statistical proof of,
That
how many
was-
lives I can touch and change from them listening to me. But, I know that we're doing good things.
The suicide rate for veterans is really unbelievable. Do you see, because we've got a large base here, we've got Great Lakes, or do you see a large amount?
I mean, we see veteran suicides, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't have my statistics in front of me. We actually, the VA actually asked us, so for 2019, we are going to break it down specifically
To
into
see.
veterans to see. but I don't have those numbers yet. But we are going to be doing that for the VA because they are obviously interested in that. You know, our statistics go to lots of different groups. So whether it be our opioid numbers, our overdose numbers, our suicide numbers, a lot of different groups, a lot of reporters ask for our numbers. So, I mean, we do report everything, you know, whenever we can.
Yeah.
We'll have, I'm hoping by March or April, we'll have our 2019 annual report all put together, and then it'll be available for anybody that is looking for it. And that'll explain lots of different, you know, things from our office and all different types of deaths that we've had.
I do a lot of veterans work here, so when the veterans come on, their timeline, anytime they want to come on, they're Dr. Bear, John Bear from the VA. Anybody wants to come on, whatever they do, they paint, they do photography, they sing, they make records, whatever they do, I'll give them the time to come on and whatever. I'm hoping that helps them because it shows that people care. And this program, we go, we're not only live this evening, but we go to the other suburban areas, and we're on YouTube, so the world gets to see them. And I say to the vets, whatever you think that you didn't do well, you're going to do wonderful, because if Hollywood sees you, just remember where you got your start from. That's right.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be on YouTube. The world is going to see you.
Yeah.
They can't believe it, but it's true. If the veterans feel that they have someone who cares, maybe they wouldn't. I can't really say for sure, because you never know what's in someone's mind.
Sure.
Some of the,
obviously
that they may think they're responsible for someone else's passing and on the field, and they feel they shouldn't have survived, the other one should have. But this is all very, stressful for them. They can't handle it. And even being overseas in a war where they shoot real bullets at you, and people do die from the real bullets in war. You can't prepare for that. You can prepare to be safe. You wear your armor, you hide behind rocks, whatever. But suburban kids, they don't know about that. And how are they going to know about that? They enlist when they're 18, or they, so what do they know? They don't know about that. How do you get your point across to be able to?
Well, I mean, we talk to folks at the VA. I mean, I lecture there whenever, once a year they have a big event where a lot of veterans come and they listen to what we talk about. I do have veterans that'll call me periodically. I meet with veterans through Honor Flight, and and we talk, and there's lots of different groups where they can go and talk, and mental health issues that they can talk about, and try to get through PTSDs and things like that. But ultimately, it's really there's way more out there than I can do. I mean, certainly, but there's a lot of good folks that are working with the veterans. I mean, there really are. And certainly, I mean, I do everything that I can, but ultimately there's a lot of other folks that are doing a lot more with the vets than I certainly can. I mean, my area with them is very different.
There are vets that, are, and this is, of course, winter time, and some don't want to go into shelters. They prefer, there's pads they could go into, places they could go into, but they prefer not to go into those places, and they sleep outside, either under viaducts or in boxes or whatever. And what if you're called to a scene and you've got something like that? How can you explain that to anybody that would say you offered them a choice? Remember, make good choices.
Sure.
Okay. How do you put that to the family, and they say, why didn't someone take him into the church? Take him into the church.
Well, there are, I mean, especially in Lake County, I mean, there are a lot of places that, they have warming centers that, when it got really cold, I mean, we actually, some of us opened up a warming center and at one of the local establishments in Waukegan, and we brought in coffee and donuts and things like that. So when it does get cold, I mean, we are there to help. There's no question. But ultimately, you can't force somebody, to go into a shelter. I mean, you do everything you can. I mean, I've, brought food to pads, and we've had buffets for them, and, I mean, so we are as involved as we can get, but it's a lot more, and it's a lot bigger of an issue than just me, certainly. But we hope, we work with some really good folks, and there's other people that are helping out, the veterans and really homeless. I mean, there's a lot of different groups, but, there's only so much that I can do as coroner. But I am involved in, in all the things that we can do. And like I said, I mean, we've been involved in warming centers. This year we didn't do any. We haven't gotten to those extreme temperatures as we did last year. Last year we had a couple days where we had
it was really cold.
Some centers that we set up, and I was involved in that. And like I said, we try to work with pads a couple times a year. When they need, we'll try to get food over there and donate some stuff. And, we do whatever we can. That's for sure.
Yeah, a couple of gentlemen that I had on that are veterans, and they work for Midwest Veterans Closet. And because I said, I've got so much.
We donate clothes.
And I said, I've got so much from the kids, and I wanted to clear out the closets, what we wear, what we can't wear, what we can't fit into, in hopes that we'll be able to get thinner, or we can't do that. So, and he said, well, let me just tell you, I said, I don't want them to have to pay for anything. What I give, I've purchased, and I want to give it. I don't want anyone to buy it.
Sure.
And it's clean, it's fresh, it's not threaded, it's, just we can't fit it, that's it. What can I say? And we gave 13 bags the first time around and 8 bags the second time around. And in each one of those green leaf bags were 2 or 3 jewel bags, the paper bags that were filled to capacity to put all in one thing. And
we actually we do a coat drive every year.
Yeah, coat drive. That's what he said.
So we do that for the veterans.
Yeah.
At Christmas time, we have for veterans we do a Christmas dinner.
Oh, nice.
We do a Thanksgiving dinner. So I mean, again, we're out there. I mean, but there's just only so much we can do.
Now
but we try to get involved in our community as much as we can.
Now people can see you, Howard, as they've not seen you before, because they just think that you're like a 9-to-5 kind of guy, and you open the door, turn on the lights, and do your work, paperwork, whatever. And at 5 o'clock, time to go home. But you're now explaining to the community, and this is going to be seen all over. I mean, everybody's community, that you participate in the community. You said the warming centers, you bring in hot coffee and donuts, and this is very rare for people to see that other people show kindness and consideration for human beings. And since the ones that you deal with in particular, unfortunately, they can't say thank you to you verbally, the families will do that, but that you connect with the living as well as with those that are deceased. So that's wonderful that you do that. But the public, knows that we've got a corner in Lake County, but
most people don't really know.
They don't know who you are. They can't. They've never been introduced to you.
It's probably good. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but certainly it's an important job, and we. We service a lot of our community. We do over 500 investigations a year.
That's a lot.
And it is.
That is a lot.
And all the deaths, like I said, over 5,000 get reported to our office. So we're definitely busy.
That's a lot. Now, how many are in your office? You mentioned.
So I have 8 deputies, 1 chief, then we have a toxicologist, an autopsy tech, and then we have 2 administrative folks.
So
it's a small, for a county, it's a small office.
So for that many people, and do they work the hours you work, or they work their own hours?
Well, generally it's 8 to 5 is our office hours.
Okay.
But then there's always a deputy that's on call, 1 deputy that's on call and 1 on backup during the off hours. So, after 5.
Yeah, after 5.
So, and then obviously weekends, we don't have regular office hours on the weekends. Our office is generally open Monday through Friday. But, we're available all the time because
what if something happens
yeah,
and they have to get it?
Well, stuff happens on the weekends, obviously.
Always.
So, we're still busy. There are times where I've had 3 deputies out at one time. Because we might have, an overdose here and a car crash there and another something here, and, it can get really busy.
Do you play golf? Do you take off Wednesday?
I do not.
You're not a golfer?
No.
Oh.
I mean, I'll play in a tournament here and there.
But you do play.
But, I mean, if I play once a year, it's a lot. So, yeah.
This is strange to my ears because
I don't have time.
everyone I know, I mean, I'm not a golfer, but, somebody else, more power to you. I mean, that's wonderful.
No.
That's wonderful.
I don't have enough time to be on a course for 4 or 6 hours.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. So for me, when my kids were growing up, I just wanted to be with my kids. I mean, when it was the weekend, I wanted to be with them. They're in school all week, and I was working, and so that was my time with them. And then, my friends always played, but it just wasn't important to me.
So a non-golfer. Well,
it's okay. I have plenty of other things that keep me busy.
Okay. Anybody famous that we would know about that comes through your office?
No, we really haven't had any famous folks. I mean, some business folks that,
not like the LA coroner has coming in through there.
Yeah, no. I mean, our office.
Nobody out of Beverly
like
Hills? No.
No, we're not like that. But
well, everybody's important.
But the thing is, I mean, that's what I was going to say. To the families, whether
they're the celebrity,
whether their loved one is on TV or not, it's their loved one.
They're sure.
And it's interesting because even when you have somebody that, might have been somebody that had been in jail for X amount of years or had a record for a really long time and done bad things, to a mother, that's still their son or that's still their daughter.
A mother is a mother, that's right.
And, and that's the thing that, we always have to keep in mind. It doesn't matter who our victims are or our decedents are or, the folks that visit our office. It's a family member, it's a loved one. And that's a really big deal, and we always have to, keep, we always have to know that, and there always has to be compassion and empathy and,
I imagine you have to keep smelling salts available because,
we hope that we don't have people that pass out, but it happens every once in a while, people that come for a tour where they'll start to feel a little woozy.
A tour.
But the folks, generally the families, when they're at our office, it's rare. It can happen, certainly, where people can pass out, but more so at hospitals. I mean, that's happened a couple times at hospitals.
Yeah, that's scary.
And it's a shame. I mean, when somebody's going to see their loved one and they're passed, I mean, it's not good. I mean, it's just not a good thing. And for some people, it's traumatic enough where they pass out.
You're so realistic. This is really remarkable because some people might just pass over it and just call it fluff or whatever. But you're very realistic, and that's very important for our viewers to know that this is a real person with real feelings.
I am real.
And he is definitely very real. And he has compassion, which is something you need in this particular profession, situation, job, whatever you want to call it. You need to show your humanity. That's what you need to show.
That's what we do. I mean, we're the voice of the people that are laying there. We speak
for them. You're the voice that don't have a voice.
Right. And that's really important, so we take our job in that respect super seriously, and we want to make sure we investigate everything correctly. if we botch an investigation and it's a homicide, I mean, somebody can go free. I mean, that's, so I mean, everything we do is super important to us, to the police, to the state's attorney, and then we need to work with all those groups of people. And then ultimately, it's also super important to the families because they want to know that we're doing everything for their loved one who can't do anything anymore because they've passed. So, it's everything we do is very important to the families.
How do you have a very busy schedule, heavy schedule, but most of all, very emotional schedule. How do you unwind? How do you just go home and unwind, or can you just go to sleep? How do you,
Well, I only sleep a couple hours a night, so by the time I go to sleep, I fall asleep. But, I mean, ultimately, it's your family.
Yeah.
I mean, I go home to, my, fiance, and then, ultimately my kids are there for me, and then, I mean, obviously I try to work out and, do stuff to keep in shape myself, to blow off some steam, and, but, it's...
But what you see in your mind when you've seen an accident or something so horrific, or seen a homicide, it's so horrific. Driving home, do you have those thoughts, or you figure, well, I'm going to just get on the bike and work it out?
I mean, I never go home thinking, I just want to go work out. I mean, I'll work out just to stay in shape and keep myself fit. Okay. And I know that it's going to make me feel better, just in general health.
Yeah.
But do I think about cases? Yeah, of course I think about cases. I think about the people. I think about, when I leave somebody's house at 3 o'clock in the morning crying, I think about those people. I think about the kids that are fatherless or motherless, Yeah, of course I think about that stuff. I mean, I don't know how I couldn't. But, there are days where things are sad. I mean, really sad. But like I said, ultimately I have to, I'll think about it for whatever period of time I need to, and then I put it away. Because again,
you can't dwell on it.
Well, you can't, because that's all I see every day.
Because the next morning you've got something else. Yeah, you've got something else.
Crazy.
You can't, just say one. One that bothers me, because I didn't know the end of the story, in Waukegan, they found a baby in a dumpster. Did they ever find who the mother was, or did they ever find?
That case I'm not familiar with.
It was either in Zion. I think it was Zion.
Yeah, it was before me.
Oh, wow.
I know of the case. But I don't know.
So my
that
God,
case.
how did somebody just do that? It's an infant, 5-week-old or 5-month-old or something. I could not wrap my mind about, what monster would do that,
But there's a lot to it. I mean,
are they on drugs? Are they mentally disabled? Are they,
or is it a young mother? I mean, so sometimes there are things that we just, you have to know the whole situation. I mean, one of the things that you really learn when you're in this position is, sometimes it's, we try to judge people or judge, things that happen. But when you see all the different aspects of these cases, or you meet with these families, or you see the people that are all involved, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot
What's the norm? You don't have a norm. What's the normal?
I don't think
is it A, B, or C? What's the normal?
There's no normal. I mean, it's, every situation is different. People are different. Yeah. People's life experiences are different.
Oh, for sure.
And it's. I think it's easy for us as a society to judge certain people, but when you haven't walked in their shoes and you haven't experienced those experiences, ultimately we really can't. And I think that, the things that I've seen and the cases that we've had and the people that I've dealt with or worked with or helped, boy, I see so many different walks of life and so many different things, and that I truly don't judge anybody for anything anymore. I listen to all the facts, I look at everything, and then I'll make, whatever decision I need to make for, my cause and manner of death, which is ultimately what my responsibility is. But, there's so much more. I mean, hey, I grew up on the North Shore.
Yep.
This is a very little bubble of the world.
Sure.
And it's a bubble that's wrapped in bubble wrap and tissue paper.
Protective.
It's very different than other parts of the county or other parts of the United States.
Yeah.
So, you see a lot of different things that unless you've experienced those things, you just don't know.
Don't know.
So it's very interesting.
It's not that you could read about it and then know about it. It's a life experience.
Correct.
It's a life experience.
Correct. And you never know what people are going through.
No, of course not.
Again, we've had horrific things happen in a lot of different areas of our county, and you never know what, until we get into it and really investigate it, you don't know what really happened. You don't know what drove people to do what they did.
Terrible.
You don't know what situations are. And, again, I don't pass judgment. I look at everything. You have to. It's really important. Because otherwise, if you just pass judgment on something, number one, you're going to miss something. And you're going to make the wrong decision because your life experience is going to be very different than that person.
Very different.
You really need to keep an open mind and look at everything.
That's why I said a 9 to 5 person, you're in, you're out, you close the lights, you're gone for the evening, or, you're going out to dinner or whatever. And you've got somebody there that has no more life to be able to live and may have had come to a very tragic end. And it's up to you to be able to be the voice and speak.
Oh, yeah. And we need to figure it out for a lot of reasons. Obviously, there's legal reasons. There's reasons, for...
There's moral reasons.
Oh, for sure. all sorts of things. And then there are reasons for just the family, for closure. Families need to know that. They need to, at some point, be able to go to sleep at night knowing, at least being able to close that chapter and know what happened. I think sometimes it's the hardest thing when you don't know what's happened. You don't know why somebody died. You don't know if they were murdered or if it was natural or, that's really difficult for families. And it would be difficult for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine going through some of the stuff that I deal with.
God forbid, that's a terrible thing. It really is.
There are losses that I don't ever want to feel.
God forbid.
And I don't want anybody to feel those losses.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's truly horrible.
This has been really a very, I wouldn't say educational, but maybe it is, but innovative, very, you're a real person. People have to know you're a real person, Howard, not just name. So we have to do another program for sure.
Anytime.
We can't just leave this like this. And that's our music. So we want to thank you for allowing us in your home, your place of business. Have a pleasant evening, a very safe week. Make sure that you put the salt down for the pets and you don't slip on the ground. Very slippery out right now. Dress for the weather. Be cautious. Be careful. And this too shall pass, because spring is right around the corner. So we will have Howard Cooper on again. This was a very interesting evening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I. See you again next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. Have a pleasant evening. Good evening. Thank you for coming. That was wonderful.
My pleasure.
Oh, your hands are nice and warm now.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
So hopefully that was okay for you?
Yeah, that was.